Here we are with Sir Mark Prescott, lovely Monday morning in August, and Sir Mark's trained here since 1970, as he shows us this lovely gallery here. What can you tell us about some of the figures we can see on here, Sir Mark?
Well, these are all the people who've trained here. If we come down here a bit, you can see them all. The DAWSON family were the sort of principal people here, and they started here in 1861. And nobody knows who trained any horse really until after 1861. Right. Up until then, it was Lord somebody's wins the Derby, and no one knows who trained them. Yeah. But from 1861, in Newmarket, they had to register, and we therefore know who was training the Newmarket runners, right. Although you still don't know who trained some of the other winners from elsewhere. So from 1861 to the present day, all the trainers are listed here. The Dawsons were the principal people. The foreign trainers came over, Mr. Huggins, Mr. Ferguson and Brewer. Right. They came over from America and Australia, right. And they did far too well. And the English, being as sporting as they always are, immediately took their licences off them and accused them of doping. So they didn't last very long. No. And then the war came, and the buildings were requisitioned, and so some of those great names weren't here for very long. Yes. And the first trainer to own it was Jack WAUGH in 1945. Right. And up until then it was always leased. Okay. And really very, very few trainers owned their yards up until the war. Really? So Porter did, Lambton did, but there were very, very few. They were all rented. And now most trainers probably own their own yards, or certainly 50% would. Yeah. But in those days it was only the very, very big trainers who did. And then these are all the famous horses that they trained. So if you want to know who trained Semolina in 1883 or whatever it is, you look up here and it tells you. And
in what way has the yard changed since the early days?
Well, we've tried to make it really so that if Matt Dawson and Fred Archer came back in, they'd still know their way round, but the modern things would be tucked away. So the pool and the treadmill and the all of those things, all those are hidden away. Yeah. But I like to think that if they came, they'd be able, and you said, put your tack on the horse in number 17, they'd find it all right. Yeah.
Same number.
Yeah. So shall we go over and have a look at the little yard?
Yes.
And have a look at that first. This is Osborne Yard, and it's supposed to be the oldest yard in Newmarket, and it probably is. The boxes here from number 12 round to number 19, they are supposedly the oldest buildings left in Newmarket.
Really?
One of the sort of interesting things is in this very small yard with 19 boxes, there are 5 wells. Right. Beautifully bricked up wells. There's one under the sandpit there, there's one under the tap, there's one in the corner, there's one in the girls' house, and there's another one there. They're all beautifully bricked up, they're all got water in. They were all built at the same time. Can you tell me what they could have possibly been used for? Anybody got any idea? Because I haven't a clue. And I always say this to everybody. I'm just hoping that one day someone will say straight away, I can tell you. Really? But I can't. So there's 5 wells here.
When did you take the yard over?
Oh, well, Mr. WAUGH bought it in 1946. Right. After the war, and he amalgamated it with Heath House. But up until then, it was just on its own. Right. We've done lots of things here. This yard, none of them could put their heads out in those boxes. And I tried to make, I think the great thing about having an old yard, there's lots of disadvantages, but there's one huge advantage in that you've got so many different boxes. If you've got a lovely brand new yard, all your boxes are the same. Whereas here we've got pokey boxes in the corner where they can't see out, and boxes where they can, and there's infinitely more variety. And I think you can generally find what suits the horse best.
So I'm quite interested in box 11. Is that a house that's been converted into a...
No, it was always there. Right. It was always there. But if you look at the old photographs, box 12 was the saddle room.
right.
because it's got lace curtains up, so presumably there was no horse in there in those days. But I put the yard back roughly as it was. Mr. WAUGH was very Spartan by nature, and when he bought this yard, he said to Mrs. WAUGH, who was a saint, he said, "Now come on, Mildred, I'll show you the yard I've built." And supposedly she came in here and she saw all the creepers, and she said, "Oh, Jack, isn't it lovely? And all those creepers." And he said, "We'll soon have those off the wall." And so he ripped it all off, and I put it back. And he took down the dovecot and I put it back. Yeah. So I put the yard back really as Mrs. Challoner had it, but with an extra box, and changed the ventilation a bit. As you know, wind blows from a big gap to a small gap. And so I increased all the ventilation this side so that all my germs now blow into Mr. Ryan's yard, as opposed to the previous system when all of his blew into my yard. But he's been very good and doesn't seem to mind.
So literally this yard is you could call it a working museum.
Yes, it is. It's a lovely, pretty yard. It's completely, I think, unlike Newmarket. Yeah. It's just not like a Newmarket yard. It's a very good yard to work in, and the yearlings start in this yard because there's less for them to slip up, and there's everything's designed for safety. There's the loading ramp there, so when the horse comes, the creepers are grown up and the wings are put on so that when a yearling walks into the box, you know how they will bang themselves, and when they're afraid, they walk into them straight. We've got rubber floors inside and out, so we've tried to do everything to make it best for the yearlings, you know. And if you just come down here, we'll see one of the boxes. We call it Crazy Corner, and any horse that's a box walker or a weaver, we try it in here, and they can see one another, and they've got a mirror, and if they are box walkers and weavers and these two aren't, then we can shut this door up and they see nothing that's going on in the yard. So some horse, he's much happier if he can see what's going on. Another horse is much happier if he's in the little world of his own. So if we think they prefer a world of their own, this is where they live. And this is the famous goats box. If we need a horse to have a goat as a companion, we put the goat in there. The horse can sniff the goat for about 3 days. And then you lift up the lid and they can play with one another. And then it only works if they like one another. So if the horse then goes to bite the goat can get under. And once they're at the stage where they really do like one another, you open that up. The goat is out with the horse, and then you just shut the goat in when you want to tap the horse up. So you've got all the advantage of the goat without the aggravation.
So do we have to ship a goat in from somewhere?
Well, we have our goat, and the last one famously went to France, and there was no legislation whereby the goat could leave England. That was fine, but there was no way for getting it back, because no goat has ever got back. It's a one-way traffic. They kill them, you see. So trying to get one back proved beyond everything. So what we did, we just doped it and put it in a sack and brought it back. There's a great story that when Colin Nutter he's my head lad for 46 years, and I first realised what a genius Colin was, because I thought, well, we need a goat, you know, for this horse. So I said to Colin, see if you can get a goat. And being Colin, of course, he was by evening stables. He came back in his little car and he's got a goat sitting beside him, you see. So we put the goat in with the horse and they seemed all right. And anyway, next morning the goat's stone dead. So it hadn't worked too well. And after first lot, there's an old girl walking in the yard on sticks, you see. And I said to Colin, I said, who the hell's this walking out? Oh, Lord, he said, it's the woman I borrowed the goat from. I said, well, you're on your own here, Colin. You can sort her out, you see. So anyway, I heard him go down the yard. I knew the man was a genius, because straight away he said, Sir Mark's so pleased with the goat, he wondered if he could borrow another one. And she delivered it and never knew the old one. And the new one lived for 17 years, so it was a great success. Yeah. Come on.
And I also always wanted to ask you about your unique security arrangements.
Well, that nice jaggy glass.
Yes.
Yeah, it's lovely, isn't it? Tasteful. I'm going to enter it for the Turner Prize, and I'm very confident of it winning.
Could be
And it's not done any old how. It goes green, brown, yellow, white. It's not just plonked up there any old how. And those nice bottlenecks, I'm particularly pleased with them. Welcoming, isn't it?
You can get away with it
Over 3 metres.
Is that what
You
it
can
is?
do what you like. And they light up nicely at night when the car headlights looks like Blackpool illuminations.